Ladies and gentlemen, they said we'd never get here, but welcome to episode 50. Absolutely. We didn't think we were going to go this far, even close, did we?
I didn't think I'd get past last week, Matthew.
But here we are, 50. If we had cricket bats, we'd raise them, but we don't.
I'm just saying, I dressed for the occasion.
You did. You did? Oh, no, I did. I wear a collar. I don't usually wear collars. I usually wear tiger snake whiskey and all that sort of stuff. You wore a very similar shirt last week's episode. I might have. This is my favourite.
Favourite, is it?
This is my favourite.
Fair enough, yeah. Cool.
So, what have we done? 50 shows. When we started off doing this thing, I watched episode 1 yesterday, and to tell you what, episode 1...
Poor.
I don't know how we got to episode 2, let alone that.
Provocatively poor.
Provocatively poor, but people seem to like us.
You have been described as the sensible one, and I've been described as a habitual line overstepper. Good.
One
of us has to be.
Good. That's the difference between TV and real life, really, I guess. But I tell you what, we're going to share a few memories with you now of what we've gone through in the last sort of 50 episodes, Matt, myself and Scotty.
If we look back, you interviewed the great Henk Vogels Jr.
The
great Henk Vogels Jr. And he spoke about how hard it is to ride a 3-week tour.
Let's have a look.
Yep.
You've ridden the Tour, you've ridden the Vuelta, you've ridden the Giro. How different is riding a Grand Tour compared to everything else you do in the sport of cycling? How much harder is it, the 3-week tour?
It's ridiculous. I mean, nowadays we have two rest days. When I raced in the mid-90s in the Vuelta and the Tour de France and the early Armstrong era, one rest day, different average speed, different petrol. You know, those guys were out of control how fast they were riding. Nowadays, I think it's a much better playing field here we have now, but it's filthy when you do these 3-week stage races. I mean, I still wake up sometimes hearing that grrr, psh, you know, that compressor of the what, you know, they're putting air in the tyres in the morning, and you got to get up and you're stage 17. Mate, I've had swan years come and sit at the breakfast table making sure we ate our massive bowl of pasta. You're just so tired, you don't want to eat anymore. So big respect for those guys that ride the GC and the Tour, because they are the elite of the elite in endurance cycling. So
you've raced into the Champs-Élysées, final corner of the Champs-Élysées, up for the sprint finish. You finished top 5 from memory.
Third,
Third, there you go, sorry. Podium finish. What is the elation like to be there on that final day and know you've got the legs to have a run for the sprint?
Yeah, I mean, when I was third on the Champs-Élysées in '97, which is actually 20-year anniversary this year, I remember that was my first Grand Tour that I finished in the Tour de France, and it went from almost tears coming on the Champs-Élysées because you've finished the tour, it's a massive accomplishment, to then sprinting to third. I actually punched and had a wheel change and sat on the back of the car for a full lap at 70+ k an hour, and then came back on and got third. And then there was a naked streaker that ran down.
That's right.
Google it.
Yep.
There's a naked,
I remember.
naked dude kept riding down there. It was crazy. It was crazy days, but yeah, awesome feeling. When you finish your tour, it's amazing. But when you finish on the podium up there with Zabel, was pretty impressive. And you know, some of my best memories, obviously, riding in the Champs-Élysées of my time in Europe, because I spent half of my career in the US and half in Europe, and that's one that really sticks out as a great memory for me, for sure.
A streaker on the Champs-Élysées, mate. Jeez, it's a bit It's like going to the cricket.
It's like going to the Grand National.
Yeah,
usually have that sort of thing at the Grand National. One of the other big special guests we had, of course, was the man who now calls WA home, the dual Olympian, Graeme Brown. And of course, I wanted to know what it was like to train under Charlie Walsh back in the real bad days.
Obviously, there was a big change between Charlie and Ian McKenzie. Charlie was really big on way over gearing us and way under gearing us. So we're doing 200 RPM efforts and we're doing 40 RPM efforts. So then in the middle, you're good in theory.
Theory works. Theory doesn't work, but if you don't break your back or your knees in the process, the theory can work.
There was a big idea about throw as many eggs against the wall and see which ones don't break.
The East German way,
A lot of the program was that way. You got some pretty reasonable guys come out of it, O'Grady and McGee, and
And there was some good guys there, like Steve McGleed, world points race champion in 1990. And Scott McGorry was part of that. Another guy, Michael Aisbert, was part of that, who, you know, given 20 years on with Orica and so forth, they could have been totally different bike riders.
I mean, you'd be in a training camp from basically January until October. By the time my first year with Charlie Walsh, I was happy we didn't make it to the finals of the team's pursuit. I've had enough. It was the 30th of October, and it was, look, I'm ready for a beer. Actually, it was the sad fact. I mean, we got taken out of the finals by the Germans, who rode 4 minutes flat in 1999. So, yeah, we got beaten by a better team. But by that stage, it was 10 months of prep for 4K is quite a lot.
So one of the eggs that got thrown at the wall and didn't break, and of course now he runs GB coaching here in WA, and you can learn everything you need to learn about bike riding from Graeme Brown when you want to.
You can. He might even throw you as an egg against the wall and see if you break.
I'm already scrambled, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. We also had another great interview. It seemed all to be done by you, by the way.
I do interview well.
You do. With the great Stephen Hall, son of Murray.
This is one of the interviews that we got the most feedback from any interview that we did this year.
And he talks about how he started racing internationally, particularly in Belgium, how he's ended up racing in the US, and he loves it.
You're the old school modern day cyclist. Now what I mean by that is, very politely actually, is back in the day there was a whole bunch of cyclists, and Murray Hall was one of them, and Neil Stevens started out that way, Steele Bishop, locally Henk McMurdo, all these sorts of guys. They travel the world racing pro races, racing around the world, making their living, but that's tended to have been lost in the sport of cycling due to things like national teams and AOS, but you've totally embraced that in the last 2 years.
Absolutely. I spent my I guess younger years in Belgium for a long time, like most Australians do. They go over and race in the rain and do all the kermis and do that whole thing, and I did that for 3 or 4 years, and I felt, I'm getting a bit stale. I wanted to move on to the US and really found my niche racing the criteriums and still being able to race on the track. A lot of guys eventually have to pick the track or the road kind of route, and I've been able to incorporate both. So I have a great season over in the US, racing as much as I can, a lot of race days. It wouldn't be uncommon to have over 100 race days a year. That's pretty rare, especially for some of the younger guys coming up. But I love racing as much as I can, and I've been able to find in the US where I can keep racing on the track and on the road. So I love it. This is my 4th year now in the States. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm just going to keep going back.
So where do you base yourself? Are you around Trexlertown?
For most of the year, I'm in Trexlertown. That's about, just outside in a place called Kutztown, about 20k from the track. So I'm there for the majority of the track season, and then I bounce around a little bit depending where the race is on, but predominantly in Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Now, did you win Rider of the Year this year?
I did. After a couple of years of getting second, finally took the win this year. It was a good battle. Went for 14 weeks or something like this. So towards the end, it's really just you're racing against 1 or 2 guys every single week, and sometimes you don't even need to win the race, but you're just trying to finish ahead of them. So it was pretty stressful, but finally this year I took the win, so that was another one that had a little circle around it for me.
And of course guys like Marty Nostine, Stephen Pate, real Olympic world champions have won this year-long season-long prize in Trexlertown, so it's a very big deal. Back in the 90s, when the American scene was absolutely booming with things like Saturn and 7-Eleven, Motorola, LA Sheriffs with Malcolm Elliott and Simeon Hempsel racing, there was good money to be made in those days. Now, what's it like now? Is there contracts available at the level you're riding at, or is it prize money?
It's a bit of both. It depends really where you want to go. A lot of the big road teams are racing the Tour of California, Utah, all these kind of races. I focus more on the crits, so you're looking more at prize money most of the time, but it's not as great as it was in the heyday. I mean, talk to Smokey Dawson or Darren Harry, and they'll tell you some stories about how much prize money there used to be, but I'm enjoying it, and I keep going back, so it's I'm doing all right.
No, that was a good interview. You know that he's a vegan and he still goes well on the bike.
Well, I'm not going to hold that against him. He's a good lad. Now, we had loads of people help us out with this show. Obviously, the man behind the camera, Adam Scott, is the man who does all the work. We just sit here and look pretty. But we got to say thanks to Travis Meyer, Michael Freeberg. Remember when we had Michael Freeberg and Luke Durbridge beat us?
Yeah, they
best day of their lives.
Best day of their lives, worst of ours.
Yeah, exactly right. We did have some women on the show. We had Jessica Allen, and of course we had Rebecca Mackey, the gorgeous Rebecca Mackey. And of course we had lots of fun in Adelaide, didn't we? We got to interview the mums of some of the riders.
The mums of Jess Allen and Sam Welsford,
yes,
which they both interviewed much better than their offspring.
Well and truly. And of course we got to catch up with Sam Welsford several times, and also Rowan Dennis was good enough to just have a bit of a laugh with us as well.
Even Cycling Maven made an appearance.
The great Mark Ferguson, now Daddy, has made an appearance on the show. And of course, last week we saw Matt Fulton.
And also, don't forget, we did interview Tyler Lindorf, and he was very, very good for a young fella.
Well, we interviewed and all, it was more of a co-host.
He was.
Trying to put you out of a job.
Well, he can have it if he wants it.
But then he asked for some money, and we said, go away.
That's it.
Simple as that, really.
Now, remember, this is our 50th episode, very happy to hear your feedback, particularly women's racing, matt1@iinet.net.au. Please follow us on YouTubes. We want to get to 500. We'll give you the Marianne Vos skin suit to the winner of that competition once we hit 500. Promise it won't be one of us, it won't be one of our mates, it'll be a random draw. And we look forward to maybe doing a few more of these if people are interested.
We might do. See how we go. I've run out of party poppers.
Thank you.
It's been fun. I hope you've enjoyed it. We've enjoyed doing it, and we'll do it a fair bit more.
Maybe.
See you later.
Yeah.